Hi, everyone. Today we're going to continue our look at the financial system by investigating the concept of money a little bit more thoroughly. While many of us feel familiar with money in general, it does serve some specific functions that we're going to want to look at. So we're going to look at what are the three major characteristics that make a thing money. We'll look at the impact or relationship between the amount of money in an economy and the price level. We'll talk about making distinctions on what we call money supply, as well as how to calculate that money supply. To start with, we recognize that money solves a major problem that we face in economics, and that is, how do we compensate each other when we exchange goods? We could barter, right? We could just share or trade one good for another, but bartering has a problem, and that problem is that it requires what's known as the double coincidence of wants. You have to have what I want, and I have to have what you want. The existence of money eliminates that problem and ensures that at each transaction there is something that we both want, and that thing is called money. We start by asking a simple question. Would you rather have $100 of shredded $1 bills or $100 of regular dollar bills? And the entire world will say they'd rather have the real bill rather than the shredded one, and which is interesting because, of course, because both of those are made with the same material by the same people, and they have exactly the same look, and yet one holds value and the other doesn't. One is money, and one is a novelty or junk. So why is it that the dollar bill that is whole is money, and the same thing shredded is not? The reason is because the shredded doesn't meet the qualifications or criteria for money. So what are the sort of three major characteristics that differentiate some items as money and other items as junk? Well, one thing is money plays a role as a medium of exchange. This thing that you're going to use for money has to be something that people want. Medium of exchange means that this thing called money is used to buy and sell goods, and that it's something that people are willing to accept. And now money as a medium of exchange is very important because it eliminates the need to barter. Instead of having to find someone who wants the exact combination of goods that you have in order to trade for something that they've got, you can just give them this thing called money, which makes things so much easier. I mean, if you imagine you're going to the market and you are wanting to buy eggs, and all you have is milk, and the person who has the eggs is lactose intolerant, then you've got a problem. You're not going to be able to make that trade unless you go to somebody else and make a trade with them, and hopefully what they've got is what this person who has what you want is interested in. So you give out this 3 or 4 way trade, including all the transaction costs, time, and trouble that it takes to make that arrangement, or you could just give them this thing called money. And so medium of exchange is very important. Whatever you use for money, it also has to be a store of value. It has to last a long time. It has to be something stable enough so that you can get paid in it now and then spend it sometime into the future. It can't just degrade, rot, or disappear. And so in modern money, we talk about our dollar bills, for example. They're a great store of value. They last a fairly long time. Especially coins last pretty much forever. Finally, we have what's known as a unit of account. Whatever you're using for money has to be able to be denominated, has to be broken down into smaller parts to accommodate this sort of pricing system that we have. It's telling me how much of this thing that we call money do I need to give you in order to make an exchange. And so it has to be something that can be broken into smaller parts. And again, modern money is really good for this. We have pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, dollar bills, $5 bills, $2 bills, $20 bills. We have all these different denominations, and so we can give the exact right amount of money for an exchange. So when we talk unit of account, we're really talking about expressing it in number terms. How many of this thing do we need? And we can look at the past and the present. We can say, okay, well, are some of these items which were used as money in the past, are they good for money today? So we look at something like salt. If you study world history, you know about the gold salt trade, And salt was something that people wanted. It was, in fact, a medium of exchange back in the day. But do people want salt today? And the answer is no. People don't want salt today. I don't think you do. And salt's not a particularly good store of value either, especially if it gets wet. So it's not particularly stable long term. And is it a unit of account? Maybe, maybe not. Sort of, I guess you can measure out how much salt you've got and give it in terms of ounces. But it's not a particularly good resource for money, at least in today's modern society. Is gold a good source of money? Maybe. Gold is something that people want, are interested in. It does have a store of value, and it is sort of a unit of account in that we can sort of parcel it out into ounces and to bars and things like that. So yeah, gold could be used as a medium of exchange. It could be used for money. Are debit cards money? Well, can you use it to buy stuff? Sure. You can go to the store, give me a debit card. Lovely. So it's a medium of exchange. Does it store value? Yeah, it's made out of plastic. It's not going anywhere. I mean, I guess the magnetic strip could go bad, but you just get another one. And can it be used as a unit of account? Can we express it in terms of dollars and cents or some sort of number, amount of items or units? And the answer is yes, we can. So a debit card is a form of money. We can use it to buy stuff. And a $100 bill, it's the same thing. People want $100 bills. They like $100 bills. They're willing to accept $100 bills. They last a real long time, so they're a store of value. And they're literally a unit of account because they're telling us they're $101, right? So when you see that number, you know that's a unit of account. So $100 bills, great for money. Now, how does money affect the price level? Well, it's pretty simple. The more money you have in the economy, the higher the price levels. The more you add to the economy, the more resources people have to bid up the price of goods. And when they have more resources available to them to bid up the price of goods will go up. In fact, just look at human experience, our communal experience post-pandemic, when the United States government pumped literally trillions of dollars into the economy. And again, this is not a question of right or wrong, good or bad. It's just reality. Trillions of dollars got pumped into the United States economy. It got into the hands of consumers, and suddenly the price of items like cars and washing machines and furniture all skyrocketed because there was a lot of money chasing after we're really about the same amount of goods. So you tend to see the more money there is in the economy, the higher the price level tends to go. When it comes to money supply, there are two measures that we care about. One is known as M1, the other is M2. M1 is all the assets used as a medium of exchange. So we're talking about currency, checking deposits, savings accounts, money market accounts. This is the most basic definition of money. And then we have what's known as M2, which is all of those plus what are known as near monies. That is, assets that cannot be used for the purchase of goods and services right now, but can be converted into currency or a checking deposit relatively easily. So time deposits, or what we call certificates of deposit, are near monies. I put my money in the bank, it's locked up for 6 months in a CD. I can't really access that money during the 6 months without having to pay a penalty. But when 6 months is over, I can take that money and it will be converted into either currency or to a checking account or a savings account. So M1 is the most basic definition. M2 is slightly more expansive. So one way to think of money supply that's helpful for this course is to think of M1 and M2 as concentric circles, where M1, the most basic definition, lies within M2. So you might get a question that asks you something like, you close out a CD and put the money into your checking account. What happens to the money supply? Well, what would happen is we would see money transferring from M2 into M1. So M1 gets larger because money is entering into M1 that was not part of it before. But no money came into M2, so M2 remains the same. There's just money moving from within one portion of M2 to a different portion of M2. So M2 remains the same, M1 increases. So having these concentric circles may be helpful to you in sort of identifying what happens to money supply given different scenarios. You may also face a question that may ask you to calculate M1 and M2 based on a table. So you'll want to get some practice at that. So using the table below, calculate M1 and M2, assuming anything not mentioned equals 0. Well, we can take a second to think about this. What's M1 versus what's M2 and add them up. Checkable deposits, M1. Currency, M1. Large time deposits, not M1. Large time deposits might be like a 5-year CD. That means it's not available for purchase of goods and services. It's not M1. Non-checkable savings deposits, that's savings accounts that you can't write a check against, that's M1. Small time deposits, that might be 6 months or a 9-month CD. Again, not M1. That's going to be M2, but it's not M1. So if we're going to add up M1, I would take checkable deposits, currency, and savings accounts and add those together. And when I do, I find that M1 is equal to $1,352. To find M2, I would take that M1 number and add the small time deposits, which tells me that total M2 is $3,097. There is one other measure that you should become familiar with. That measure is the monetary base. This is different from money supply. This is the quantity of money that's controlled by the Federal Reserve. There is some overlap between monetary base and money supply, but they are different in nature. The monetary base includes all of the reserves held by banks, as well as currency in circulation. It does not include all of the checkable bank deposits. As a result, monetary base is a smaller measure of aggregate money in the economy than either M1 or M2. Next time we'll talk a little bit more about how banks actually create money. And until then, I will see you later.